Sonny on Twitter. What's taking the day, my friend?
Not too much. Today's my true day off where I have literally nothing. But my wife was texting me at work that she felt kind of sick and just like crap in general. So she actually came home at around noon today. So I had a nice little nap for the first time, and I don't know how long.
A nap?
I took a nap. Yeah. I'm not a nap taker, but I took a nap, and it feels very weird coming off the nap, so to say.
Well, I'm glad that you got up in time for the show.
Yeah. Me too.
You're going to have a hard time sleeping tonight, my friend.
Yeah, that's all right. Oh, well. Whatever.
I don't know. I've done that nap thing. I've tried on the weekend, and I've actually accomplished it a few times, and then it's like, you know me, I'm usually in bed around 8:30 because of my job.
Mm-hmm.
And so normally on the weekends, I try to stay up maybe till like 10 o'clock or so. I know, I'm getting old. I know. But when you're married and getting old like me, 10 o'clock, that's like a party. So I've done the nap thing, and then it's like all of a sudden I'm not tired at night. It's like, I really need to go to bed. It's the weekend. I really need to get my sleep. No.
Yeah.
So I gave up taking naps on the weekend. Just not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Just not worth losing my sleep at night. But we got a good show today. We didn't really talk too much pregame, but the Big Ten basketball show, we did that, Kevin. That is also on thegruelingtruth.com. And we recorded that show before last night when a few Big Ten teams played. So I just mentioned the results here at the beginning, but this is primarily going to be Big Ten football. College football playoff poll came out. Not many games to recap, but the games, I don't want to say they really count now, but they really count now. I mean, the college football ranking is out, and that's the one that matters. And, oh, my, the Big Ten has been, I guess, gifted. They've been gifted with the new playoff football poll. You know what, youngster, you're an Ohio State fan, and I think I said, what did I say, 2 weeks ago? I said I thought Ohio State was the best team in the country.
Right.
And they were ranked, fourth or fifth at that time in the poll?
Yeah.
And then the playoff committee came out, and bam, just like that, Ohio State, number one. It's the way it should be. They are. They're playing the best of all the teams in the country right now. I was a little surprised to see Penn State at 4. I was. And it's going to be a big matchup, Penn State, Ohio State, when that game comes up. It'll basically allow one Big Ten team to sneak into the national championship in my mind. What do you think, youngster? How'd you like the poll?
Before that, very quickly, going to run through basketball. Michigan State, number one in the country. Yeah, they lost to Kentucky, who was number 2. They lost 69-62. It is what it is. During the first half, Michigan State kind of struggled to score a little bit, and that's, it would have helped to have Josh Langford, the shooting guard, back. Again, no one's quite sure exactly how long he's going to be out for, but we'll see if he's back in the second half of the year or not. That's kind of the diagnosis, is kind of a wait-and-see approach. But, again, this is primarily a football show, and to go into the depths of a big game like that, quote-unquote, for basketball, to do it 5 months before the NCAA tournament begins, it just doesn't make much sense. So football with the college football playoff, that's what's really on the forefront. But it was a quote-unquote big game in the sense that it was number 1 versus number 2 for college basketball. So it was cool to see. Michigan State's a really good team. That's my take on that. I'll kick it back to you at the end when I finish these scores up, Troy, because most of them are kind of pointless. Maryland beat Holy Cross by 24. Michigan beat Appalachian State. They were up big in the first half, only won by 8. Indiana won by 33 over Western Illinois. Penn State won by 38 over Maryland Eastern Shore. Illinois beat Nichols by 8. Minnesota beat Cleveland State by 35. One upset, you could say. Really, truly, UC Riverside beat Nebraska by 19 points. We talked about that on our kind of overview, just off-the-cuff basketball podcast that Troy and I did earlier this week. And it was like Fred Hoiberg at Nebraska. We love Fred Hoiberg. But really,
the young team.
With all the change Nebraska's had, it's just there are no real expectations this year for that team. That's one of the few that you absolutely know is not going to the NCAA tournament this year. And honestly, if a first game truly shows anything, that kind of shows that I would be surprised if Nebraska made the NCAA tournament.
Well, you got to remember there, and I know we don't want to get too far off the tree trunk today, but you got to remember, Kevin, you bring in a new coach. You mentioned it yesterday. 11 new scholarship players this year?
Yeah, and
11?
I think it's like more than that when it comes to other things. But yeah, that's just what I saw was 11.
So I mean, he is implementing his style of play into a program, and he's got a bunch of new faces together. For their first real game that counts?
Right.
I mean, all I can imagine is they're reviewing tape, looking at players, evaluating players, and trying to move forward in the recruiting process and bring in guys that are going to help them win in the long run. So if you're a Nebraska fan, I don't want people getting on them going, "Oh my God, we're only 6-22." Well, yeah, I mean that to me is probably a fair record. It's not going to be very good in the Big Ten. You got a lot of experience in the Big Ten.
Right.
So give the guy a chance.
Yeah, they're going to be fighting around the bottom this year. We'll see next year could be more interesting once he actually gets a class under him. But 2 years, definitely 3 years, and he's a guy that's willing to bring in transfers too. So once he has a full recruiting class and once you see some improvement, because I know you will, then it's a matter of, what transfers can you bring in, stuff like that. He was a master of that over at Iowa State. So anyway, the last game I wanted to mention, the last game there is to mention, St. Mary's number 20 in the country, and they played Wisconsin. So that was actually a good game. And the game went to overtime. St. Mary's won by 2 points. I did
a little DraftKings sports book on that one, my friend. I took Wisconsin in the 3 points, or the 3.5 points.
There you go.
Yeah, I won. Yes.
Nice.
I thought Wisconsin might be able to actually win the game outright. When I saw the spread, and I was like, Wisconsin's getting 3 points, I'm like, I'm all in. Not literally all in with my money, but I placed a hefty fair wager from my wallet anyway. I mean, some people will go, "That's it? That's all you put down?" Yeah. And I'm not gonna share those results, but I did go on DraftKings Sportsbook and took Wisconsin in the 3 points, and I won. I wish they would have pulled that out, but again, St. Mary's, it's a good program, getting a little respect, being ranked in the preseason. So it's a good quality program. Yeah,
I think more often than not, they end the season ranked, basically around that 20 mark, usually. Sometimes they have a down year, they don't make the tournament, but usually they'll push Gonzaga at least and be the number 1 team outside of Gonzaga in that West Coast Conference. And they're a fairly regular NCAA tournament team. Like this year, I'm sure they will be. So,
Yeah, maybe a little higher seed. A lot of times they're getting shafted, though. They're getting in that 7-10 game a lot of times.
Yeah.
So maybe this year, and again, I watched a little bit of it, but I had to go to bed. I mean, again, they're a good program, and if they can, be there and play with Gonzaga, maybe they get a little bit higher. Who knows? But we can move on, my friend.
Yeah, it was interesting. The one thing I wanted to mention, too, Nate Rovers, 22 points, 6 rebounds, 4 blocks. Be interesting to see as the non-conference schedule goes along if he is their quote-unquote leader going forward, kind of overtaking for Ethan Happ. Not that you can't have a team that's entirely selfless and even, but usually there is one guy that stands out more than the rest, whether that's statistically 2 more points on average than everyone else. But I think that
you need to go to guy.
Yeah, exactly. Every team has that one guy that they trust more than the others to put the ball in the basket. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be your quote-unquote best player. But some, like you said, just a go-to guy that's your quote-unquote leader on the court. And maybe Rovers is that guy. So we'll see.
Well,
that's
the teams,
interesting.
Kevin, the teams that are going to go deep in the tournament have a guy that can change the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you need, and Wisconsin's trying to find that guy. It was Ethan Happ. We talked about it last year. And sorry to go off on a tangent, but everybody that listens regularly knows I'm a Wisconsin Badger fan. I'm from Wisconsin. The way that you beat Wisconsin was shut down Ethan Happ and make somebody else beat you, and you had to find somebody to step up. And Wisconsin right now doesn't even have that go-to guy. So they're trying to establish where's this offense going to rotate around and who's a guy every night that we can count on to drop. And I'm not even going to say 20. I'm going to say drop 15.
Yeah.
So a guy that can drop 15 down because the Wisconsin Badger team, defensively, they're going to put the clamps down. They're going to be good defensively. So, all right, let's move on. I'm ready to talk some football, my friend.
Yes. So, college football playoff rankings came out Tuesday night. We're doing the show Wednesday for you, the fans that listen to the show, because typically we do the show on Tuesday, but obviously the playoff rankings will get people talking. I'm with you that the Big Ten got some favorable rankings. And the one thing that a lot of Big Ten fans are, they have their knickers in a twist about is that Minnesota's ranked 17th. And they're 8-0, and they're behind teams like 6-2 Kansas State, 6-2 Notre Dame, 5 spots behind 8-0 Baylor, 4 spots behind 6-2 Wisconsin, 7-2 Auburn at 11, 7-2 Florida at 10.
Who have they beaten?
Right. And especially when you consider that it's all based on these however many committee members, 13, whatever it is. Realistically, are they watching every single Minnesota game? They're not. What you can see from Minnesota is that, okay, they're 8-0. Who did they play? In conference, who have they played? Nobody yet, really. Like, their toughest 3 games are in the next few weeks. So it starts this week against Penn State. But so who have they beaten in conference? Nobody really. And then you look at the non-conference, and they struggled there. They struggled to beat an FCS team. They were beating everybody by 1 score. They barely got past, who was it? Fresno State, I think. They scored a touchdown on like a 4th and 12 at the end of the game. So Minnesota hasn't been impressive until the last few weeks. Their offense has really gotten going. Their defense has been a little better. But again, who have you beaten? It's really been nobody. So do I think Minnesota should be higher? Probably. Would I have them higher than 6-2 Kansas State? Yeah, I would. But do I think they're actually better than Wisconsin? Do I think they're actually better than Michigan? I think they'd probably be good games. I haven't seen enough Baylor, and but just by record, do I think Minnesota got shafted a little bit? Sure. At the end of the day, does it matter if Minnesota beats Penn State? If Minnesota beats, they've got one other tough game before the Big Ten championship. But if they beat Penn State, if they beat Ohio State, let's say, in the Big Ten championship, are they going to be left out at 12-0? I don't think so. At that point, they would have.
Well, no, Kevin, because here's the thing: they have a game against Penn State this week. We're going to talk about it. If they knock out Penn State from 17, they're probably going to jump up to like 11 or 12.
Yeah, at least.
They end the season with Wisconsin. If they beat Wisconsin, they're probably going to move up by a couple more spots. Yeah. Then if they would win the Big Ten championship against Ohio State, then let's say Ohio State wins the table, who's ranked number 1, you're telling me that the committee's not going to put Minnesota in. So it doesn't matter. If you're not in the top 4 right now, you got to look at what you got left. Are there some teams in there that are getting shafted? Maybe, because they don't have the opportunity to move up. They're not playing those ranked teams.
Right.
I don't understand the fuss, Kevin. Do I think Minnesota's the 17th best team in the country? Yeah, right around there. Right around there. Because, like I said, who have they beaten? And if people want to say, well, Wisconsin 6-2. Okay, they play at the end of the year. Yeah. On paper, right now, and compared to who Wisconsin's played and the Gophers have played, yeah, they should be back to back. I'll give you that because they haven't played yet. But I think Wisconsin's a better team. So there you go. I saw that. I'm like, well, come on, just lay off of it, folks. It's not based on record. That's why I like this committee poll. They actually look at the teams, and like you said, Kevin, they're not watching every minute of every game, and a lot of it's an eye test.
Right.
But you and I don't watch every game either,
No.
and we're pretty good at our show. So where they're at, I don't have a problem with it. Because if they take care of business and do everything they need to, yeah, like you said, if they knock off Ohio State at the end of the year and run the table and they're undefeated, no way in the world do they be left out of the tournament. No way.
Yeah, they're just one of those teams where if they lose one game, they're not getting in. And that's the same for Baylor. That's the same for probably Oklahoma. Oklahoma's probably screwed. That's a team you can say, damn, the committee doesn't give us much, love. They're number 9 at 7-1. They're underneath Oregon. They're underneath Utah. Like, okay, that sucks if you're an Oklahoma fan, because you don't have many great games to hang your hat on. Oregon, Utah probably play each other in the Pac-12 tournament, in the Pac-12 championship. So one of those teams is going to have a decent case. At 11-1 Pac-12 winners, your last game is against another top 10 team, most likely. Most likely those teams finish out the year unbeaten the rest of the way. They've both slipped up once. So that was good if you're a Pac-12 fan. But like Oklahoma, yeah, that team, that hurts. But like Georgia right now, they have to win out. If they lose one more, they're done. If Clemson loses one more, they're done. If Penn State loses one more, probably done. People are saying if Alabama loses one more, they're done. That's because if Alabama loses to LSU, Alabama at that point wouldn't get in from their own division to the SEC championship, and the best game they have left is against, Auburn, and Auburn's number 11 right now. So even Alabama is probably screwed if they lose to LSU.
Kevin, I'll say this. If Penn State beats Ohio State might be screwed too, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
That win, Penn State will move into the Big Ten championship and have another quality game.
Right.
They'll be guaranteed. And then if they lose in the Big Ten championship, maybe it would help Ohio State. But let's say Penn State wins that game, and they win the Big Ten championship, and Ohio State's sitting there with one loss, and Alabama doesn't lose. Ohio State might fall out. So I don't understand all the fuss over Minnesota. They're having a great year up to this point, but they have not beaten anybody.
Right. Yeah.
And you look at it, is 6-2 Wisconsin have a chance to sniff the playoff? Hell no. Hell no, they don't. But they're still a top 15 team in my book.
Yeah.
So
they're ranked.
It is what it is.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's interesting, just based on what's left and how much you can climb. Like Minnesota, their best win at this point, I'll get off Minnesota in a second, but their best win at this point is debatable. At Purdue, Illinois at home, Nebraska at home, Maryland at home. You're definitely not going to say at Rutgers, and you're not going to say South Dakota State, Fresno State, or Georgia Southern. That's it. Like, take your pick as to their best win. Going forward, they play Penn State. Then the next week, they play at Iowa. And then to end the year, they play Wisconsin. So they've got a game against Northwestern Michigan there, too.
And then most likely Ohio State in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
You win those 4 games, and you have a case.
Yeah, they're in. So they can't lose one, which, okay, fine. But at the beginning of the year, did a Minnesota fan at 11-1 think they would have a chance at the college football playoff? No. So it's not as though you thought Minnesota going into the show was going to be ranked number 8 and have
Kevin,
a chance.
Wisconsin 11-1 wouldn't get in the playoff.
Probably not.
I really don't believe they would. Let's say Wisconsin would have ran the table, and they'd be undefeated right now. And you're looking at the way things are rolling out. Okay, well, then Ohio State would have a loss because Wisconsin would have beat them. But do you think Wisconsin would be ranked number 1 in the country? No.
Or if they beat Illinois, lost to Ohio State close, still, what's Wisconsin ranked at that point? 9, around Oklahoma, around Utah, around Oregon with 1 loss.
Even
so
Kevin, let's say they would be 8-0 right now, I think Wisconsin still wouldn't be in the top 4.
No, I don't think so either.
I think they'd be like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah,
really, at that point, I got to be a realistic fan. Okay, they would have the Ohio State win. They have the Michigan win, but where's Michigan? What's Michigan done? Michigan's a little bit above average team right now. They're coming on a little bit. But this whole debate, people are always going to debate polls, Kevin, but I'm okay with the poll. I'm surprised at Penn State.
Right.
But I think they got it right putting Ohio State first.
Yeah. If you're a Big Ten fan, you have to be happy, not with Minnesota being 17, but happy with, I think you're happy with Michigan being 14. I think you're happy with Penn State being ranked higher than undefeated Clemson. I think that's huge. And obviously Ohio State over LSU. And I know technically, if you want to go by numbers, Ohio State has a tougher schedule than LSU to this point, but even me as an Ohio State fan can say, yeah, I'm with the SEC lovers in the fact that LSU has more impressive wins than Ohio State does right now. By the end of the year, maybe a little different. But Ohio State's schedule, as far as, quality of wins, and yes, LSU has beaten, they definitely beat Texas, they beat Florida, and they beat Auburn, so those are 2 top 11 teams. And Ohio State hasn't beaten 1 top 11 team. So I know over the course of the entire 8-game schedule to this point, Ohio State's schedule technically is tougher, but LSU's got more quality wins, and so for the committee to say, we see the games, we think Ohio State's better than LSU, they're number 1. That's great, and it's great that Penn State is over Clemson, who's undefeated. I mean, Clemson coming into this year was supposed to be this unbelievable team.
Yeah, they were supposed to cruise all the way through, be the number 1 ranked team, and be in the national title game again.
Right, and here they are at 9-0, and they're under Penn State. So you've got to be happy if you're a Big Ten fan. Minnesota.
Now here's the thing, Kevin. You look at Penn State, Ohio State being in there. The committee knows those 2 teams play. So I'm not saying that they set it up because the Big Ten's been snuffed out here the last couple of years. But if you look at it, it's do or die for the Big Ten. If Ohio State wins that, they're going to maintain. Well, I mean, they got to take care of their other business too. Don't get me wrong. But that's going to be a huge game. And if Penn State wins, they're not going to vault to number 1. They'll vault up maybe to number 2, maybe, depending on what the teams in front of them do. But they might just move up to 3.
I think they go to 2. Like LSU plays Bama this week. Automatically, I mean, Penn State, if they beat Minnesota, they'll be number 3 at the worst, because Ohio State's beating Maryland this week. So, Penn State should be number 3 if they beat Minnesota. And then it's just you're behind undefeated Ohio State and the winner of Bama LSU. That's it. I mean, I
don't understand all the ruckus, Kevin. I don't understand the ruckus of this poll right now. There's 4 weeks to go.
Yeah, we've got another full month. I think
you could have whoever you put in this top 4, there would have been some kind of complaining.
Oh, absolutely.
And
there always is.
It'll work its way out, Kevin, in my mind. And then it's going to come down to the end of the year again, the conference championship games. And there's going to be somebody left out like every year. And then we're going to hear the same darn debate. There's going to be 8 teams in the playoffs. Oh, there's got to be 10 teams in the playoffs. Oh, my team's ranked 11th. We got to have 12 teams in the tournament. Come on. Let the teams play, and you can't base it on record. You have to be real, and you have to have an eye test of who is playing really good football and who are the 4 best teams in America.
Yeah.
That's the way it's got to be done. And I think the committee does a good job. And you know me, Kevin, me and committees, we don't get along very well. I'm not a fan. But I think the college football committee, for the most part, does a good job. But they're human. They're human.
I've never had an issue at the end of the year with the 4 teams to get in. Never. Not that I can remember anyway. And I'm an Ohio State fan, and they've lost a total of 2 games the last 2 years, and they haven't deserved to be in the playoff. based on getting throttled by Iowa, based on getting throttled by Purdue last year, they didn't deserve one of those 4 spots. So we saw 3 years ago when Ohio State wasn't all that great, they got into the playoff, and then in the semifinals they played Clemson and lost 34-0 or whatever it was. Something ridiculous. That's yeah, they didn't really necessarily deserve it. They're really good. They're a top 5 team, top 6 team, but at the end of the day, they couldn't hold their own against the top teams. And that's fine. I like to think that I'm a realistic fan in that sense. And I think realistically, if Ohio State loses a close one to Penn State or Penn State loses a close one to Ohio State, that at the end of the year, if you're debating 11-1 Penn State, 11-1 Alabama, 11-1 Ohio State, 11-1 Alabama, or LSU, and both those teams at that point would not make the Big Ten or SEC championship game, for that number 4 spot, let's say, that's when things could get interesting. But until that point, 1 month from now, if it plays out that way, there shouldn't be this massive debate. So that's, one Big Ten team will get in, one SEC team will get in, undefeated Clemson, they're going undefeated. They'll get in, it doesn't matter that Clemson's number 5 right now. They're going undefeated the rest of the way anyway. They're going to win all their games. So they'll be in. Again, at the end of the year, maybe 1 loss LSU, Alabama goes against 1 loss Ohio State, Penn State for that last spot. Maybe, if it plays out that way.
Yeah, and then you can have your debate.
Right. But yeah, that's all I got on the playoff.
All right, let's recap the massive 4 games in the Big Ten last weekend.
Sounds good. Michigan at Maryland. Michigan won 38-7.
As they should.
Yeah, not that I'm speechless, but what do you want to really take from that? Other than Maryland's been a little disappointing after the first 2 weeks of the season. After the first 2 weeks of the season, you thought they had kind of an electric offense and they could be really interesting this year. They haven't been. Michigan's been better since they lost their 2 games. It is what it is.
Ever since the Harbaugh rumor to the NFL came out, they've been playing really good.
That's true. That is very true. So, I've got nothing more on that game, to be honest with you.
Go Wolverines.
There you go. The only close game of the weekend, Purdue at home against Nebraska. This was a really fun game at the end. Purdue ended up with their 3rd-string quarterback leading them down the field for a game-winning drive, and then they called a reverse play on 3rd and 6 from, I don't know, it's like the 13-yard line. They needed a touchdown to win. They could have had a field goal and tied the game. This was, within the last minute of the game, but they called a reverse play, and it was perfectly called, and they executed it perfectly, and the guy walked in the end zone, and Purdue won the game 31-27. Again, with your 3rd-string quarterback, their freshman running back had a solid day on the ground, averaged around 5 yards a carry. And David Bell is a freshman receiver who's up for Biletnikoff Award. He's on that watch list, and that's to go along with Rondale Moore, the All-American from a year ago, who was a freshman, who is still trying to come back from an injury. This team's got a lot of young talent. And the one thing I'll say is that it was said from Jeff Brom, the coach, earlier this week, that the starting quarterback, Elijah Sindelar, probably done for the year. Oh, and so is Jack Plummer, his backup that got hurt in this Nebraska game. He's probably out for the year, too. So this team is now down to its 3rd-string quarterback, and at one point during an interview meeting with the media this week, he talked about what would be his 4th and 5th-string quarterbacks. Because not only do you need a backup for this 3rd-string quarterback now, but in case of a crazy emergency, hey, who's your 5th quarterback? So he brought up a name. I don't even remember the name, but that's the situation that Purdue's at. Is they've got a bunch of young talent on offense. So that's
they
cool.
got the batch of Gatorade that Maryland had last year.
Right. But yeah, the quarterback injuries they're killing them. To talk about bowl eligibility, as Troy loves to do, this team needs to go 3-0 the rest of the way to become bowl eligible, a.k.a. they're not going to do it. So
good luck.
It's just the way it is. Is what it is for Purdue. But I've got nothing more on this game. There is a rumor out of Nebraska, and I'm not going to say exactly what that rumor is, but there is something.
There's just a little tiff going on. Just call it a little tiff going on.
Yeah. There's something involving the football team and multiple players, and it's a rumor involving multiple players, and just kind of leave it at that. It's understandable if this rumor is true or parts of it are true, and it's dividing the locker room a little bit, and it's causing a little ruffle in Nebraska's, within their team. So maybe that's part of why Adrian Martinez isn't playing necessarily as well. Maybe just in general why this team is underperforming this year. We kind of saw that with Michigan State basketball a year ago, Troy, when that whole scandal thing came out, and they lost 3 straight games, I believe it was, during a stretch around that time. And it's like, over the course of the season, if something is truly dividing your locker room and the outsiders are talking about it, and it's like, oh, gee, this is interesting. Your focus does go to that a little bit, and it can mess with your play on the field. It can mess with practice a little bit. It can mess with how much you prepare throughout the week, especially when your team is not elite, and Nebraska isn't. So, again, no idea if the rumor's true 100% or not. No idea if parts of it are true, but there are some rumblings, and it's interesting if anything ever does come out. I'm sure something will eventually, but.
Well, you always like when I add my coaching knowledge into these things.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to give stories. I'm not going to give stories. I'm just going to kind of touch on your point. You got players, and you got a tiff, and this is an off-the-field issue. And you look at football. Now, you got to remember, Kevin, when I coached college soccer, I had, 28 guys in a locker room, 28 girls in a locker room. Not as many as a football team. And a lot of, a football locker room, I've never played organized football at that level. So even with 28 guys, and I guess I'll go back to my playing days, even with 28 guys in college, when I played at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, had to get the plug, youngster, had to plug it.
Yeah.
You don't see, you're in the locker room, and everybody thinks, for those that haven't played college athletics or at a high level, everybody thinks you go in this locker room and it's like, oh, it's a huge, big family, blah, blah, blah. If you go into a locker room and you look at the way the lockers are set up, yeah, you can have an open area and you see them, the open areas. But the thing is, Kevin, you're not sitting there buddy-buddy with everybody. Yeah, you got, locker mates next to you. And those are kind of the guys who you hang out with and talk to. And then you might go to the bathroom, or you might venture to the training room, and you might run into another teammate at some point. So it's not like you guys are sharing a bunk. Locker rooms are kind of big, and you're not always there. My point to this, though, you start having internal tiffs.
Yeah.
And it does. It distracts everybody in the locker room. Because now you have, like I said, for example, when I was at Whitewater, my locker was on the far end of the locker room, all the way in the corner, and that's where I wanted it. I picked it. I like to be away from people when I was getting ready for a game. I don't want to be out by all the hustle and bustle. But I got people on the other wall. I got people next to me. I've got 4 or 5 guys around me.
Yeah.
When I played, the rumors, the talk. Hey, do you know what so-and-so did yesterday? Do you know what happened to so-and-so? Blah, 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 blah. And then one of those guys wanders off to the training room. Oh, did you hear what blah, 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 blah. Now this thing keeps going and going and going. Nothing can be kept secret. But my point is you don't see these guys all the time. But now all of a sudden people are going to start taking sides. Because that little group of 4 or 5 guys that I'm around, we're probably talking about it. And within that group of 5 guys, we're coming up with what side are we on? Whose side are we on? Who do we believe? Who do we don't believe? But now the other guy that was in the group went to the training room and talked to somebody else. He went back to his group of 4 or 5 or 6 or however many it is, and they did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So now you got all these little pods of people with their opinions, and they don't have all the facts because it's just rumor. But then when it gets to the source of the problem, man, you got to go out on that field. You've got to go out on that field, and all of a sudden, it gets back that this is all everybody knows in the locker room now. Oh, my God. What a fiasco. Yes, it is a major distraction. And I don't care what people say. No, you got to block the media out. I didn't have media, Kevin. Like, I had the Royal Purple. That's what I had. I had to read the Royal Purple. Yeah, you were the editor, sports editor for the Royal Purple.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have all this fancy Facebook and Twitter, but just life itself caused problems in a locker room. I can't imagine playing. Ooh, excuse me, I'm in a tunnel right now, and the car decided you wanted to rev his engine and be cool. I can't imagine all this social media and the turmoil that it causes. But from a coaching standpoint, a player standpoint, it does. It affects everything. Because a lot of those conversations that are being had happen in that locker room before practice, before a game, and that's not where your mind needs to be. Again, if you remember what I said, I wanted my locker in the far corner of the locker room to be away from people, and that was part of the reason. I'm on that team, and I need to prepare to play and practice. I don't need to be part of a drama club, but it happens. It happens in every locker room. Just wanted to share that, youngster. That's my little food for thought.
Yeah, and even me as a kid playing rec basketball, I played on travel teams and stuff like that, where there were more guys. But even rec basketball as a kid, we had 8 players on a team, and I remember there being division within the team. You know, whether it's me and someone else, or whether it's 2 guys and another guy, or whether it's half the team split down the middle, you don't necessarily like every other 7 guy on your team. And that's boys, kids, in a rec basketball situation. So let alone.
Can you imagine trying to like 8? What do they have on a college roster? 84?
Right, exactly. Right.
80 players?
Yeah. In a Big Ten, collegiate athlete, players playing for their lives literally to try and make it to the NFL and help their family survive. Things will get a little heated between a few teammates now and then. So, again, for a rumor to potentially be bringing Nebraska down a little bit, I don't think that's crazy, just based on what I've heard. So, anyway, that's all I got there. Last two games, very quick. Illinois at home against Rutgers, they won 38-10. This game was actually interesting at halftime. It was 10-10, and then Illinois won the second half 28-10. So they flexed their Illinois muscles, and I will say this, that they are 1 game away from being bowl eligible, which, again, Troy, it's hilarious. But at the end of the day, Lovie Smith, his first 3 years, his best year was last year when they went 4-8. So if they can get to 6 wins, if they can get to a bowl game, if you can beat Wisconsin, get to a bowl game, hey, you're doing something. This team's won 3 straight. They're 3-3 in the Big Ten. They're showing a little improvement, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, maybe we counted them out before we should have.
Apparently, we thought that Wisconsin would take care of business, and they didn't. Excuse us, listeners, for thinking that Wisconsin would beat Illinois that Saturday.
Yeah, I think about 98% of the world thought Wisconsin was going to take care of business, too.
Yeah, I think 99 point something.
Yeah.
Probably more accurate.
They should have taken care of business.
Right. But
8 gazillion turnovers didn't help. Let's get off that. Move on to the next game, because I'll just get all frustrated about that.
Last one. Indiana at home against Northwestern. They won 34-3. We bet this. This was our lock of the week for the week. We bet Indiana minus 12.5. Again, they won 34-3. So we actually won one of our locks of the week. We are 4-9 now.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
We're very close to winning.
Are we close to being bowl eligible?
We are close to being bowl eligible. We're 4-9, so we need 2 more. unless you consider bowl eligible 500, whatever. But my point is that, hey, we got one right, and we have almost half the amount of wins as losses this year. So that's great. We're heading in the right direction.
We're showing improvement like Lovie Smith.
Uh-huh.
We've saved our show. We've saved our show for another year. Actually, I think the basketball portion saves us on the grueling truth.
Yeah.
I really believe it. Going into our fourth year of that. I gotta plug it. It. All right. Let's move on. Let's see if we're gonna lock anything this week.
Last thing with that Indiana-Northwestern game, Michael Penix, the quarterback, who's been in and out this year, sophomore, quarterback for Indiana. He's, again, been in and out with injuries, and, again, in this game had an injury. And Tom Allen said after the game, he's done for the year. So that sucks for Indiana. It's awesome that they have Peyton Ramsey, the backup, who stepped in and played really well during spots. So it's not as though they're void without a quarterback and they're screwed going forward. But Michael Penix is better, and he is definitely the future of this program. And it's great that Ramsey has stuck around and been willing to be the backup, and he has been able to come into the limelight multiple times and show up for Indiana, and he will for the rest of the season. So kudos to him for not transferring for, a starting job somewhere, potentially. But Penix is out for the rest of the year. That hurts. He is the best Indiana quarterback that I can remember watching.
So, Kevin, I got to throw this out there. You bring up yet another quarterback injury, and you're seeing a lot of quarterback injuries across the country in college football and in the NFL. But is it because you've got defensive linemen that literally are 300 and some pounds that can run like 4.6 40s now and can bench press 8 million pounds, and they're like machines?
The other thing,
not like the old days. I mean, these guys are beasts.
Yeah. The other thing is quarterbacks run more now in college, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know the college football game 30 years ago, but I think that more and more running quarterbacks are in college football, and coaches are willing to coach that way. And so they are more susceptible to injury. You're more susceptible to injury when you run against one of those guys that can bench 8,000 pounds, and you get tackled by them 5 times a game, as opposed to being a pocket quarterback. You get sacked twice. It is what it is. You're healthy. But if you're running around 10 times, 12 times, 15 times, sometimes 20 times in a game, depending on the quarterback, you're more likely to get hurt. That's why running backs in the NFL die off by age 30. Why? Because they're taking big hits from grown men 20-plus times against the turf, and over the course of 7-8 years, your career is going to go downhill pretty quick. So it's the same type of thing.
Everybody's talking about Lamar Jackson. I know this is a Big Ten show, Kevin, but you're absolutely right, and that's what I kind of figured you were going down that road. So Lamar Jackson taking the NFL by storm, that's great. But if I'm the Ravens, I'm running his legs off until he can't run no more because we're winning with it. I don't. If I'm the Ravens, I'm not caring about Lamar Jackson playing 20 years. I'm caring about can Lamar Jackson get our team to the Super Bowl?
Right. Within the next
5 years.
Well,
I'm not giving them 10. How long did RG3 last? After his injury, he went kapooey.
Yeah.
It only takes Lamar Jackson to go on a run around the end and get his leg wiped out and have a massive ACL injury. And what about Teddy Bridgewater in Minnesota? What a horrific injury that wasn't even from running. But my point to this, Kevin, is you now have these college quarterbacks, and you've got the running system going on. Oh, the quarterback can get us 70 yards in a game. I understand that. But these guys on the edge, these defensive ends and these linebackers, outside linebackers, Kevin, 20 years ago, these outside linebackers that are, I'm air quoting, pass rushers, would have been nose tackles in the NFL.
Right.
The game has changed dramatically. And these I don't want to call them wimpy quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson's a big guy. But compared to a defensive end, he's a little squat. And they crush him, and they want to crush him. I enjoy watching quarterbacks get out of the pocket, but I think you're going to start seeing as we progress into the NFL. You got Murray in the NFL, but he's actually been a little more traditional with the Arizona Cardinals. But again, when you get out and run, if you're just going to be run first, pass second, I don't know how long you're going to last in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's great if the Ravens can win that way, but you better start looking for a future quarterback because it only takes one knee injury. And I just wanted to bring that up, Kevin, because I noticed as I go through NCAA football news and notes, so-and-so quarterback hurt, so-and-so quarterback hurt, so-and-so quarterback hurt. And now not all of these are because of running. Some are shoulder injuries, some are concussions, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, it's a big thing. The running thing, we'll see where it leads. All right, I got off the tree trunk again. Reel us back. We got to preview a few games. We got to get rocking and rolling. Mrs. Youngster probably wants you off the show because we're past that 6 o'clock time frame.
Yeah, probably true. One thing I'll mention, too, though, if you're a backup quarterback, you may not have to transfer. You may be able to, and unfortunately, like the starter in front of you may get hurt. It's more likely now than ever, in my opinion, and Troy's opinion, it seems like. So, again, kudos to Peyton Ramsey for sticking with the program, and I know the program absolutely thanks and loves him for that. He has definitely helped them a lot this year already, let alone for the next month. So, kudos to him. Anyway, moving forward, Week 11 this weekend, Saturday, November 9th. 5 games. First one at noon. I try and go chronologically. Ohio State at home against Maryland, Troy. What do you think the line is on that one?
Ohio State at home at the Horseshoe.
Number one Ohio State at home against Maryland.
28.
43.5.
Wowzers.
And to be honest, like Ohio State this year has
probably,
been beating
they probably could beat them by 43.
Right. They've been beating teams by 43.5. I mean, not literally, but you get my point that, especially against a team that's been struggling, absolutely defensively, but even offensively. Maryland's been struggling. So since week 2, this team's been really struggling. And now Ohio State coming off a bye, they're the number 1 team in the country. They have all the confidence in the world, and they have not had one of those letdown games. I think Ryan Day has been phenomenal at that. Not that I couldn't have Ohio State at 8-0 right now as a head coach, but I think Ryan Day has been phenomenal at keeping Ohio State on point and keeping the offense turning and keeping the defense rolling week after week after week after week after week and saying we cannot lose a single game. Just beat the you-know-what out of everybody. Prove that we are the best team in the country. And they've been rewarded as such. They have the number 1 ranking right by their name when it matters, when it actually matters. Again, it's a month from now when it actually matters, but this poll, these rankings do matter. Now, this is the committee that is looking at these teams, and they think Ohio State's the best team in the country. So, good job for Ohio State. Good job for Ryan Day for keeping this team churning the way it should, because it's happened the last 2 years where Ohio State has had some BS loss by 28, 30 points to a team they should win, and it's cost them a playoff spot. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case this year. So, again, there's a month of games left, but this team has been rolling everybody. And I think part of it is because of the last 2 years, and they've been screwed out of a playoff spot. Not necessarily screwed out of a playoff spot, but they have screwed themselves out of a playoff spot because of letdown, just one time, both years. I think they're over that. So, I think Ryan Day.
You better hope so, youngster. You better hope so. You better hope that we're not talking next week as a Maryland upset.
I would, and Vegas would apparently be shocked. I'm not locking one way or another, and obviously Troy and I are both picking Ohio State outright to win this game, but not going to lock.
Yeah, 43 points is huge.
It is.
I mean,
but I can see 56-7. So.
Well, I could see them putting up a ton of points too, but I can also see them. I don't want to say like calling the dogs off, but if they're up 35-0 in the third quarter, are they going to start chucking the ball down the field? They might, but they might just run the ball too. And I know they can run for more scores,
Yeah, their backup's really good. So that's been the thing too. Is like these starters are usually out by the fourth quarter, and they're still able to win the fourth quarter 14-0. That's kind of been the difference with Ohio State beating teams by 50 this year. So we'll see what happens. Me personally, like for my site that I write for, we do picks against the spread, and that's been documented throughout the year. And I'm going with Maryland against the spread. But again, for this show, I'm not locking anything. But 43.5 against an offense that does have a few playmakers it's a big number. So
yeah, that's not a real money bet.
No.
That's how I'm now going to do our locks of the week. If I feel like I could put my own pocket money on Sportsbook,
right?
Then I feel confident about taking a spread. This one I don't. I'm not touching this one.
No.
I mean, Ohio State's going to win.
Yeah, obviously.
All right, move on.
Second noon game, Northwestern at home against Purdue. And this one should be interesting. Again, Purdue's down to its third-string quarterback. Aiden O'Connell is his name, by the way. He did a
maybe Northwestern has a chance against a third stringer.
That's the thing.
You want to talk about a team that has underachieved.
0-6 in the Big Ten.
Wildcats, oh my gosh. People might want to talk about Nebraska, but here's the funny thing, Kevin. You and I didn't think Nebraska was all the hype.
I thought
all the hype they had preseason. You and I didn't think that Nebraska had all that hype going. We thought Northwestern was a better team.
I picked Northwestern to win the division, and they're 0-6 right now in the Big Ten.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on there. But this game, you got Purdue, third-string quarterback. Northwestern's at home, right?
Correct.
I don't know if So if I'm Vegas, Purdue's got a third-string quarterback, but they went down the field, beat Nebraska. Is Nebraska better than Northwestern? I guess. I'm going to say Purdue by 6.5.
Northwestern by 2.5. They're actually favored to win. But it is based on, home field. Vegas sees this as a pick'em, and I think that's wrong. I think Purdue, even with their third-string quarterback, is probably a little better. But Northwestern is at home. They are winless in the Big Ten. They truly are playing just for fun. Like, they literally can't make a bowl game even at this point. So playing for fun, nothing to lose. You're playing against a third-string quarterback. You have Pat Fitzgerald as your coach, and he's going to be on you, and you are at home, and you are playing against the third-string quarterback. So I do think Northwestern wins the game, but I do think all things being equal, I think Purdue's a better team. So I'm with you. I was surprised to see Northwestern favored, but I do think Northwestern wins a close one.
I don't know. I think Purdue's going to win this. You just look at this. You just look at this offense, Kevin. And we're going to a third-string quarterback, but the kid's getting reps, right? And Purdue likes to chuck it. They like to chuck it down. They like to play offense. Northwestern can't stop anybody.
Northwestern also has scored one touchdown in the last, I think it's 5 games.
Well, they're playing against Purdue's defense.
They've scored one
touchdown. They're going to score more than one in this game. But I think Purdue can score. I really do, even with a third-string quarterback. I think Purdue's going to win. I mean, this might be a real money. This might be a real money bet. Yeah, because Purdue's getting, what'd you say? Purdue's getting 2.5 points?
Yes. Yeah. Purdue is an underdog.
And that line could change by the time I go bet. But
right.
I like Purdue in this one, youngster. I like Purdue on the road, even with a third-string quarterback.
So we are differing. So no.
Yeah, we're not locking this one for sure because you want you like Northwestern. I like Purdue.
Right. By the way, it's one touchdown in the last 4 games, not 5 games. But since the month of October, Northwestern has scored 1 touchdown. That's how terrible their offense has been. So certainly Purdue could win the game. Would not shock me. But anyway, to move on, probably it definitely is the most anticipated game. Also at noon on ABC, Penn State is on the road. They travel to take on Minnesota. Both teams are 8-0. So the line here, Troy, Minnesota at home against Penn State.
No, the Gophers are ranked 17th. They're getting the short end of the short end of the shaft. But here we go, right? Because now we're going to take a Vegas line, Penn State by 11.
Penn State by 7. So you get the point that Penn State's favored by a touchdown at least.
On the road.
Right, on the road.
Where you're getting 3 or 3.5 points.
Yeah.
So really,
at home.
Yeah, so really Vegas thinks Penn State's going to win by about 10.
Right. Yeah, neutral field, Penn State would be favored by 10-11. So, yeah, Penn State is, and everyone thinks this, that Penn State is the better team. I think that Minnesota's offense has been rolling. The last,
they haven't faced a front four like this. You could take the best players from every defense they've played, and it wouldn't be as good as this Penn State front four.
No, not even close.
This Penn State front four is for real. It is phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah, this is one of the best units in the Big Ten. Like, you want to talk about one team's wide receivers, one team's running backs, one team's D-line. Like, Penn State's D-line, even against Ohio State's D-line, I would consider Ohio State's defensive line better, but not by much. Like, I think Penn State's got a top 5 in the country D-line. I know Ohio State does, but I think Penn State's got a top 5 one too. So it is, this Minnesota offense, and I know their offensive line has improved as the year's gone along, but we saw this offensive line pretty much get dominated by an FCS school in week 1. So if you compare that to Penn State, it's going to be very interesting to see how this game goes. We'll really see how good both these teams are, but we'll see how much Minnesota's improved from the start of the year. Truly, right here. Biggest game in TCF Bank Stadium history for Minnesota. You could certainly make that argument. And PJ Flecker's got a 7-year extension, by the way. Did not mention that on the basketball show.
Good for him. I mean, good for him that he got an extension.
Yeah. He was kind of rumored.
He's done really good things there.
Yeah. He was rumored with the Florida State job that's open, and USC's got an opening as well. So it's, there are big programs in college football that are looking for coaches, and guys like Tom Allen at Indiana, he's been rumored with contract extensions as well. I'm sure we'll hear about that sooner than later. But Flex is set in stone, 7-year extension to 2026. So good for him. This game, I do like Penn State as well. I'm not going to lock it, although I do think Penn State, again, against the spread, if I had to pick, I would pick Penn State to win by more than 7. But I wouldn't lock it because I could see Minnesota even having some BS late touchdown, making it a 4-point game. They have to kick an onside kick, they miss it, or they don't recover it, and they lose. I could see something like that, where they're down 10, 13, 11, they score a touchdown, they score a field goal to make it a 7 or 8-point game, and then they miss the onside kick and, lose that way. I'd be surprised if Penn State blew them out, but their D-line has the potential, especially if Minnesota's offensive line is as suspect as it was at the beginning of the year, to make the game ugly. Again, I don't think it does get ugly, but I think Penn State is definitely a better team, and I think we see that Saturday at noon.
Well, yeah, I mean, the committee's got them at 4.
Right.
And they've got Minnesota at 17. And, again, I'm not debating this. I think it's about right. And you're going to see the better team win. I think it'll be an interesting game because Minnesota's offense has played well, and I think they're getting better defensively. I mean, early in the year they were struggling with those non-conference games, but, they've played much better in the last couple of weeks, but they're not as good as Penn State. You go position by position on paper, and if anybody wants to say, well, they're on the same level as Penn State, no, I'd have to say you're insane. Go position by position and just look at the rosters. Now, again, that's why you play the game, though. And Penn State is traveling. So do they come out maybe a little flat? They could.
And both these teams are off a bye.
Maybe Minnesota punches them once.
Yeah, both these teams are off a bye.
And they take an early lead.
Yeah, both these teams are off a bye, if Minnesota gets a touchdown early and Penn State's coming off a bye and they're a little flustered, a little bit, hey, we are the better team, everyone knows we're the better team, we're favored, we're supposed to win, and the environment's loud, and you're at Minnesota and you're down by a touchdown, and you're not playing as well because you haven't played in 2 weeks. Like, yeah, I can see an upset. I don't think it's impossible, but I do think Penn State absolutely has a better roster. They absolutely have more talent. They absolutely have more speed. They absolutely have a better D-line. So I think Penn State wins the game. But
yeah, I don't think I'm not even thinking upset, Kevin. I'm just saying Penn State comes out flat, and Minnesota's hyped up, and they get a 10-point lead. Excuse me, my sinus cold is all of a sudden it just felt like acting up here at the end of the show. So excuse me for my weird-sounding voice right now. I don't think Minnesota wins, but they could get off to a quick start. But Penn State is so athletic, they can score quick. They can zoom, boom, their score. And then their defensive line can just shut down a drive, and Penn State gets the ball back, zoom, boom, score. Now it's 14-10.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be as quick as that. All right, let's move on.
The number one key, very quickly, is Minnesota's O-line against Penn State's D-line, if you haven't picked that up. And Minnesota, Penn State, I should say, Penn State, KJ Hamler, the wide receiver, he's definitely been their game breaker on offense. So if Minnesota can hold up on the O-line against Penn State's D-line, and Minnesota can slow down the number one receiver for Penn State, again, I can see an upset happening. I just don't think it happens. I think Penn State wins by double digits. But there is a recipe to beating Penn State. It's don't let the D-line kill you and take away the number one receiver. That's the way to victory, really.
You want to lock this?
Yeah, I'm down.
I said the line was should. You asked me what the spreads are. I said 11. I think Penn State wins by double digits. I'm good locking. Giving 7. I'm good with that.
Sounds good. We've got it.
Let's lock her up then.
Let's
lock her up. I might real money this one too.
Huh. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about the lock. But yeah, we're both on board. Penn State wins by double digits. So there we go. We are taking Penn State -7. Last two games: Illinois at Michigan State. Troy.
Man, Illinois has been playing well. It's at Michigan State. I'm not sure how much love Vegas is going to give Michigan State. I'll say Michigan State by 6.5.
Michigan State by 14.5. Which I'm with you that I think it's kind of big. I think Michigan State wins the game. Yeah, I think Michigan State wins the game, but an upset wouldn't shock me. And for a 14.5-point line, I would be willing to lock Illinois as well.
Yeah, what are they thinking? Are they putting all the hope in Michigan State's defense? Have they seen Illinois? Did they see what Illinois did against the Wisconsin defense?
Right. Michigan State's got to score 17. Michigan State has to score 17 points and shut out Illinois just to cover the spread. I don't...
Yeah, we're locking this, but I'm trying to wrap my brain around this.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is for sure a real money bet for me. Because... Now, okay, so here's... I'm like, I don't know what you call it. I'm like flabbergasted. So... That's
the word that came to my mind, too.
You've got Michigan State that has an offense that has at times put up points, Kevin. But you know how much I'm in love with Wisconsin in their offense.
Illinois' defense has been playing
non-existent.
Yeah. Illinois' defense has been playing decent as well the last few weeks. They've won 3 straight games for a reason. Like, their defense is playing decent football. It hasn't been playing terribly. And against Michigan State, all you have to do is play decent defense, and you'll hold them down to 7-10 points. So, I don't know.
Wow. I'm not saying that Illinois is going to win the game.
Right.
But that point spread, I got to take the points. I got to take Illinois in the points.
I think that's the key, too, is 14.5 is a lot different than 14. It's a lot different than 13.5. because, again, Michigan State could win by 2 touchdowns. It's very possible. But 14.5 that's more than 2 touchdowns.
Do you have the schedule up for Michigan State, the results in the Big Ten?
I can pull that up very quickly for you.
Pull it up, and I want to see the offensive output in all their Big Ten games.
As soon as it loads here. Alrighty. They've lost 3 straight games. Big Ten.
I just want to know how many points they've scored in all their Big Ten games.
In September, they scored 31 against Northwestern. In September, they scored 40 against Indiana. Since September, they scored 10 against Ohio State, 0 against Wisconsin, and 7 against Penn State. So to be fair, they've played at Ohio State, at Wisconsin, and they played Penn State. And their offense.
Yeah, they've played three of the top 10 defenses in the country.
Yeah, very fair to say. So it's possible that Michigan State's offense is not as bad as it's been, realistically. Especially when your defense is giving up 34, 38, 28, it makes the offense feel like they actually have to do something. Which forces more turnovers, in my opinion. But
all right, I'm still locking this. I still think Illinois covers that spread.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, Illinois has got confidence right now, Kevin. Lovie Smith has secured his job for at least another year.
Oh,
like you said, they're almost bowl eligible. Woo! They got confidence. And I don't think Michigan State has any confidence right now. You and I have already talked about it. We think this is D'Antonio's last year.
Right. Yeah.
So
last year.
From that standpoint, I think Illinois is going to be right there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's an interesting game. 4 o'clock is the latest start. It's the last game for the Big Ten. Wisconsin at home against Iowa.
That's going to be a good one.
Yeah, it should be.
So I'll give you the spread, but while I'm thinking, I want you to look and see what the over-under is. Yeah. Because this is going to be a game where I think this is where I real money that number, if it's a good one. But I'm thinking, man, the Wisconsin at home, I think these are 2 evenly matched teams. I'll say Vegas is picking Wisconsin by 4.5.
Wisconsin by 9.5.
I think that's too much.
I think that's fair, to be honest. I think Wisconsin has had one dud of a game against Illinois, and then they got kind of exposed against Ohio State. I personally think Wisconsin's better than Iowa. I think Iowa's offense has been very lackluster, and I think Wisconsin's offense, outside of turning the ball over too many times against Illinois and against playing at Ohio State, Wisconsin's offense was rolling. So Wisconsin's offense, to me, has looked better than Iowa's, and I think Wisconsin's defense is better than Iowa's, and Wisconsin's at home, and Wisconsin's coming off a bye.
Yeah, I still think it's going to be a close game, though. It's Wisconsin-Iowa, Kevin. I know they're not going to put it in rivalry week, a Wisconsin-Iowa game, but, these Wisconsin-Iowa games, we talked about the Iowa-Penn State games. They're going to be grind-them-out games. We know what Wisconsin wants to do, and Iowa wants to do the same darn thing. I could see a game that is maybe 17-14, 21-10. So the 9 points, I'm okay with it. I really am. But you've got 2 offenses that are built, that want to be built on ball control and moving the chains. So, just a 9-point spread, that's a lot. I think Wisconsin wins this game. Could they win by 10? I just said it could be 21-10. So I'm not willing to lock this one in. Just from my prior history as a Badger fan. Yeah. Wisconsin, Iowa, this is going to be like a 21-14, 24-14, 24-17. I'm going to say the over-under on this, Kevin, is probably 44.5.
It's down at 38.5. So it's with you that it thinks it's going to be, at 38.5, you're thinking 21-17, that type of score.
And it really could be. That's a tough one. I thought they'd give me something more favorable to play with.
Right. Vegas knows. Usually Vegas knows.
Was that 45? If it was at like 45, I would definitely go under.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. To me personally, I'm thinking the opposite of you, though, that I think Wisconsin wins by at least 10. So we're differing in that sense. We both think Wisconsin wins. But I just think Wisconsin's a better overall team. I would trust Nate Stanley more than Jack Cohn, but outside of that, I like Wisconsin a lot more than Iowa, personally. But
now ready?
That's all.
What else we got? That's it, huh?
That's it. Dunzo.
A little longer than we thought. We did not think the show would take an hour. But
right.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Right,
we are done. Yes.
Let the fans know where they can find our stuff.
Yeah, at YoungStrollman on Twitter. YoungStrollman.home.blog is our homepage, but social media stuff at YoungStrollman on Twitter, YoungStrollman on Facebook as well. That's facebook.com/YoungStrollman. So, again, check out that stuff. Obviously, thegruelingtruth.com is where you can find these podcasts, as well as the basketball preview show that Troy and I do. Again, we did more of an overarching, hey, basketball's here podcast earlier this week. But we're doing a solely, go through the Big Ten, look more in depth at teams show as well within the next week probably. So we're looking forward to that as well.
Did we break it down last year? Did we do 3 shows?
I think we did do at least 2. But yeah, we usually.
Yeah, because going through all the teams in one show, that would be, to be honest, I might bore myself. I mean, I could sit and talk. I really could. But for me when I edit and listen to us again, I would probably bore myself because that would be like a 3-hour show.
Yeah, we may have to cut it into 2. It's probably smarter.
Yeah, but we might even want to talk about maybe doing 3.
Maybe.
Because I'm excited about this year's basketball season.
Yeah.
You mentioned it yesterday on the basketball show. There's 11 quality teams in the Big Ten this year, and I agree with that. I mean, we talked about 8 Big Ten teams going to the tournament last year. You and I both surprised, but we had a high number last year when we did a preview show. What was it? We thought there was 10 quality teams last year, Kevin?
Yeah, I think we kind of said 10, and then 7 probably make the tournament, and it ended up being.
I think it was
8.
7. I think we were on 7, and then we were sweating. We were sweating in the middle of February because teams were knocking the snot out of each other and win on the road, lose at home, win on the road, win at home, lose on the road, playing 500 basketball. Are these teams going to get in the tournament?
Right.
So, all right, my friends, let's let the fans go. Hope you enjoyed the show today, everyone. For the youngster, I am the old man. We'll get back at you next week, same place, same time.